Hi, I'm Doug Keating, and this is All the Way Leadership, a company designed with one purpose in mind, and that is to help make you a better leader. Today, I'm going to talk about what happens when leaders do not deal with poor performers. Let's go. I believe that most followers have high expectations of their leaders, a lot of times sky high. In the last two blog posts, I wrote about two troubling leadership trends: hitting the easy button and not having a good strategy. Today, I'm going to talk about the third troubling leadership trend that is becoming more prevalent, and that is limited leadership accountability. I'm going to look at this trend from two different angles: dealing with poor performers and bad behavior. Let's start with the good news first. Most organizations can track their performance without too much difficulty. It's pretty amazing the amount of data leaders have at their fingertips about performance. In my current leadership position, I get a ton of data about my business unit. Many leaders do. Business metrics, customer feedback, and employee surveys provide important insights into performance. All of this data is great. Not only can leaders determine how well they're performing, but they can leverage it to identify what is causing problems. For example, if you're running an online company and using tools like Google Analytics to understand user behavior, you receive a ton about the people who are visiting your site and what they're doing while there. You'll learn how many users clicked on your ad, which will help inform your online marketing strategy. Leaders can usually figure out how well they are performing. Let's face it, failing to get the job done is costly. There may be many reasons why an organization isn't performing well. Some reasons are easier to address than others. You may have an inadequate strategy, new competition, the wrong product, a bad marketing approach, or simply struggle to keep up with customer demand. If there's one thing I've noticed during COVID, several companies have struggled to keep up with customer demand. Just look at the bike industry. I mean, people are stuck at home and are like, I want to buy a bike. And no one expected the flood of orders coming in all at the same time. Teams that perform well and win are usually well led. The sports entertainment industry understands this principle probably better than others. Sports teams that win multiple national championships spend a lot of time making sure they have the right leadership team in place. Look no further than the New England Patriots. Same owner, same coach for years. Results: multiple Super Bowl victories. More than any other team. It's good to be a Patriot fan the past decade. In contrast, if the team is not winning, it is not uncommon for the owner to replace the coach. But that change doesn't always work. For example, my beloved Washington Redskins, or I should call them the Washington football team now, have made their fans suffer through a decade of mediocre football. For some teams, performance like that is fine. Not for the Washington, D.C. area. We expect a winner. The Washington football team possesses multiple Lombardi trophies. We just haven't won one in a really long time. I mean, a really long time. I had a full head of hair the last time we won a Super Bowl. The Washington football team owner keeps trying to solve the problem by replacing the coach to include bringing back Hall of Fame coach Joe Gibbs. Even that didn't work. He eventually left and someone new was brought in. The name of coaches who have played under the current owner is way too long for me to go through. I couldn't even name everybody if I had to. Points to the fact that the problem may not be the coach. Might be the owner that's the problem. Until that change is made, the Washington football team will continue to be happy just making the playoffs. Forget about winning a Super Bowl. All right, let's get to the tough part. The question that naturally follows is, what do you do with low-performing leaders? More importantly, what do you do if you are the problem? What if you're a leader who's failing to deliver results? If you're the problem, it's time to do something about it. Don't hit the easy button and hope for the best. Hold yourself accountable, invest in yourself, become a better leader. All the Way Leadership is here to help. In the coming year, we'll continue publishing curated content about leadership. We also plan to launch a training program for leaders who are looking for ways to increase their individual impact and improve their leadership effectiveness. Take advantage of these resources and the many others that are available. Don't wait for your boss to walk into your office, close the door, and have a tough conversation with you about why they are moving you from your current role. If you're struggling, get after it, get busy, and figure out a way to become a better leader. As a leader, it's important to hold yourself accountable and those who work for you. If you have a low performing team member, you need to work with them for ways to improve. Perhaps they need training, coaching, or more guidance. It's up to you as a leader to figure that out. Don't watch team members flounder without doing something about it. It is awful to watch somebody who's just not good at their job and no one on the team, much less the leader, is doing anything to help that team member out. That's just a sad situation. They deserve better for sure. Rarely will the problem fix itself. It's not like somebody's just going to wake up and say, I'm so much better than I was yesterday. If you've worked with a poor performer and performance doesn't improve, you may need to consider making a change. It is a difficult decision to make, one of the tougher ones for leaders. Do not take these decisions lightly. The reality is sometimes you have to remove a poor performer and move on. Here's the downside. If you don't, you are sending a signal to the rest of your team that poor performance is tolerated. And you don't want that circulating through your team. Morale will plummet. Whatever you decide, avoid simply handing the problem to someone else. Many leaders are afraid to deal with poor performers. I have witnessed this firsthand many times in the government. The poor performer is not helped or fired. Instead, you just move them along. The problem continues. In fact, it gets worse over time. The poor performer eventually is promoted and put into a position of greater responsibility. The problem grows until someone has the courage to deal directly with the poor performer. Don't let that happen to your organization. It is sad to see some people who are in senior leadership positions and they are awful at their job because no one dealt with the poor performance early on in their career. Instead, they just pass it along, and next thing you know, 20 years later, you are dealing with a nightmare of a leader. These results can be devastating if you choose to ignore it. Bottom line, don't pass along the problem. Deal with poor performers who are in your purview. What's the key takeaway? It's important as a leader that you deal with poor performers. If the problem is you, get help. Get after it, get the training, get whatever you need to become a better leader. Do everything you can to help poor performers. At a certain point, if they don't start to show signs of getting better, it's going to be time to move on. If you don't, morale on your team is going to suffer because it'll be considered to be acceptable to be a poor performer. And before you know it, your high performers will start lowering their own bar when it comes to effort. If you need help as a leader, good news, you're in the right place. All the Way Leadership is a company designed with one purpose in mind, and that is to help make you become a better leader. I hope you join me on this journey to raise up the next generation of leaders. The world is in desperate need of more great leaders, women and men who lead with confidence, clarity, and creativity. It's time to become the leader your world needs. Let's go.